Welcome to Michelle's Podcast News, your daily update on what's happening around the podcasting community of companies, technologies, and partnerships. I'm Michelle Tandler, and today we have some exciting news to dive into. Apple has just announced a new high-profile partnership for its podcast subscription business with the New York Times. This is a significant move as the New York Times is effectively paywalling its archive of popular podcast feeds like The Daily and Hard Fork. Users of the podcast app can now unlock the full archive and more through a paid subscription, which will contribute a percentage to Apple's services revenue. According to Axios, the New York Times is also offering its paid perks through Spotify. Starting in October, listeners will need to subscribe to the Times audio content to access older episodes of their hit shows, such as The Daily, The Ezra Klein Show, Modern Love, and Hard Fork. At launch, the 3 most recent episodes of The Daily will be available for free on any platform. However, the deeper archive will be exclusive to subscribers. Most other shows will only feature the latest 2 episodes for free. Subscribers will also enjoy additional perks, like early access to new shows from Serial Productions, an audio production firm that the Times acquired back in 2020. This is a strategic move for the Times, which already monetizes podcasts through advertising and its NYT audio app membership. However, convincing podcast listeners to switch from their preferred podcast app to a bespoke player for specific shows can be challenging. For Apple, this partnership highlights the benefits of its years-long effort to build a robust podcast listener base and to find ways to monetize the platform while remaining competitive with giants like Spotify. However, there is one area where Apple has not been able to strike a deal with the New York Times. The Times would be a major addition to Apple News Plus, but for now it only offers Wirecutter and The Athletic as part of the ad-backed Apple News experience. That's all for this segment. Stay tuned as we continue to explore more exciting developments in the podcasting world. This week's Future of TV briefing looks at how Overtime and Vox Media are adapting their podcasts into long-form videos. Honestly, I thought video podcasts were just a fad. And obviously, I was wrong. Way wrong. More than 170 million people have watched a video podcast on Spotify, and YouTube has become the most used platform for consuming podcasts, according to a study by Cumulus Media and Signal Hill Insights. All of which is to say, podcasts are becoming largely video productions. As a result, podcast publishers are having to sort out how to adapt podcasts into videos. Sure, they can just hook up a show's RSS feed to YouTube and have the audio play over a static image of the podcast's thumbnail image. But then that's not really a video podcast. Nishat Kurwa, Senior Vice President and Executive Producer for Podcasts at Vox Media, said, "There is a version of a video show that you could do, say, on YouTube that is a static image and just a long-form audio bed underneath it. That doesn't feel as native to the platform, even though people do consume that way." And so, as we think about podcasts as like a modern talk show, our chat podcasts at least, we are thinking about what's native to the different platforms where they appear. Making video podcasts native to platforms like YouTube means making sure a video podcast is as much a video as a podcast. There are some basic elements like filming the hosts and guests. But simply recording a Zoom session or setting up a single camera in a podcast studio doesn't necessarily suffice. Sam Gordon, editor-in-chief of Overtime, said, "It's important for us to be cutting and changing the layout of the screen just to keep the user engaged. That's one thing that you never need to think about for audio versus on video. It's like, how is there some type of change every once in a while so that people are not just looking at the same type of image for too long?" Much of the answer to that question depends on how the podcast is recorded. If done entirely in person, then a best practice is to set up 3 cameras on set, one focused on the host, one focused on the guest or co-host, and one set at a wide angle to show all parties. That way, we always have 2 angles that we can pull from for any given person, said Gordon. In-person recordings also open up production design opportunities to create visual interest on the set. For example, Sue Bird's and Megan Rapinoe's podcast with Vox Media, A Touch More, originated as an Instagram Live series recorded at home. So the video podcast is filmed in one of Vox Media's studios on a set that looks like a cozy room, said Kurwa. If recorded remotely via Zoom or another video conferencing platform, creating visual interest can be trickier. Webcam quality clips are often of lower resolution than what people are accustomed to watching on YouTube, especially as more of YouTube's watch time takes place on TV screens. This is where graphics become the unsung workhorse of the video podcast. You can add a lot of personality with graphics, said Kurwa. Overtime, for example, has graphics packages for each of its shows recorded via Zoom. These graphics enable the Zoom recordings to be inset as opposed to scaled up to cover the entire screen and enlarge the lower image quality. Additionally, Overtime sometimes adds motion to the graphics that add depth and life to the shot. We also have graphics where we can show multiple camera angles at once. If you go full screen and it's half one clip and half the other, it's not visually engaging, Gordon said. Vox Media similarly enlists its design team to create custom visuals and motion graphics for its video podcasts. We map out what the segments are going to be in the show. We talked to the design team about some recurring templates that we think we're going to use, whether that's the segment title cards or recurring motion graphics that we think will be useful to have over time, Kurwa said. Minding the visual as well as oral quality of podcasts is also reshaping the skill sets of those working on podcasts. Case in point, production assistants on the Vox Media Podcast Network's production team have historically been responsible for pulling archival audio clips and now are being asked to also pull B-roll video clips. We are seeing the future of podcasts as multi-platform shows. I think that is a skill set that's really beneficial for podcast producers to have so that they can be more versatile in the jobs of now, the jobs of the future, and be more of an asset to more kinds of productions, Kurwa said. In political news, Vice President Kamala Harris has launched a series of radio ads aimed at rural and Republican voters in Pennsylvania. This campaign strategy features testimonials from Bob Lang, a farmer from Chester County, Pennsylvania, who previously supported former President Donald Trump but now backs Harris. In the ad, Lang talks about his family's sixth-generation farm and expresses disappointment with Trump. These ads will be aired on more than 130 rural radio stations across Pennsylvania, potentially reaching 500,000 voters in areas outside of major cities. The radio ads are complemented by a geo-targeted digital video ad that features the same message. Additionally, the Harris-Walz campaign has announced a separate $3 million investment in Spanish-language radio ads to reach Latino voters in key battleground states during Hispanic Heritage Month. These states include Arizona, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Harris has been turning to radio to reach undecided battleground state voters who will be crucial in deciding the 2024 presidential election, which is currently very close. In Pennsylvania, Harris holds a slim 1.3 percentage point lead over Trump compared to a 2.4 percentage point national lead. On the other side of the political spectrum, former President Donald Trump is leveraging the popularity of podcasts to reach specific audiences. Trump and his running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, have spent the summer courting podcast listeners and influencers, especially those with young male audiences. Trump has made appearances on popular shows like Logan Paul's Impulsive this past weekend with Theo Vaughn and the Lex Fridman podcast. These appearances focus on relatability, often featuring personal, non-political conversations. Shauna Daly of the Young Men's Research Initiative suggested that this tactic might help Trump expand his base by encouraging non-voting young men to participate in the election. The impact of this strategy is evident from the reach of these appearances. For instance, Trump's interview on Logan Paul's podcast garnered 6.5 million views on YouTube. This approach underscores how both campaigns are utilizing different audio platforms to connect with voters in innovative ways. That wraps up today's episode of Michelle's Podcast News. Thank you for tuning in, and be sure to join us tomorrow for more updates on the podcasting community of companies, technologies, and partnerships. I'm Michelle Tandler, signing off.